Welcome to our YouTube channel. We continue to report on the newest development on the war between Russia and Ukraine. A few days ago, the Russia Defense Ministry verified the Wagner Group's claims that they have captured the town of Soledar. The Wagner Group is a Russian paramilitary organization that operates outside of the law in Russia, where private military contractors are officially forbidden. While the group itself is not ideologically driven, various elements of Wagner Group have been linked to neo-Nazis and far-right extremists. The group gained global attention during the war in Donbass, where it helped Russian-backed separatists in 2014. It has also been reported that Wagner contractors have taken part in various conflicts around the world, including the civil wars in Syria, Libya, the Central African Republic, and Mali, often fighting on the side of forces aligned with the Russian government. Reports also suggest that Wagner operatives have committed war crimes in areas where they are deployed, including rapes and robberies of civilians and torturing accused deserters. The Wagner Group is frequently considered a de facto unit of the Russian Ministry of Defense because it operates in support of Russian interests and receives military equipment from the Russian Ministry of Defense. It is believed that the group is used by the Russian government to obscure the number of casualties and financial costs of Russia's foreign interventions. It was widely speculated that the group is owned and financed by Prigozhn, a businessman with close links to Russian President Vladimir Putin. After years of denying any links to the Wagner Group, he admitted in September of 2022 that he had founded the paramilitary group. Prigozhn, also known as Putin's chef, is a close friend of Putin. He is called Putin's chef because of his Kremlin catering contracts and has close ties with the Russian leader. He was born in Leningrad and was raised by his single mother and trained by his stepfather. In 1981, he was sentenced to 12 years in prison for robbery and fraud, but was pardoned in 1988 and released after serving 9 years in detention. Prigozhn is known for his control over a network of companies, including the Wagner Group, and was also linked to 3 companies that have been accused of interfering in the 2016 and 2018 US election. His companies and associates face economic sanctions and criminal charges in the United States. Prigozhn has publicly criticized attempts to take credit away from his Wagner Group. In a recent statement, Prigozhn expressed his frustration with what he perceives as attempts to steal victory from the Wagner Group. He did not specify which battles or engagements he was referring to. After Ukrainian forces withdrew on Friday, Russia's Ministry of Defense initially proclaimed that its brave paratroopers had liberated the small town in Donbass. Initially, they did not mention the Wagner Group in their statement about troops operating in the eastern Ukrainian town. That version of events was contradicted by Prigozhn. He said that not a single paratrooper, but multiple, were involved. This public dispute is just the latest sign of growing tensions within Russia's military ranks. Prigozhn, along with other ultra-nationalist figures such as Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov, has been pushing for a restructuring of the military's leadership structure. The recent reshuffle of top generals by Russian President Vladimir Putin is also seen as an indication of internal conflicts within the Kremlin. Prigozhin's statement also revealed his concerns about internal struggles, corruption, bureaucracy, and officials who want to maintain their positions. He also stated that these issues were of greater concern to him than the United States. However, shortly after his statement, the Russian Defense Ministry issued a rare acknowledgement of the Wagner Group's role in the battle, praising the group's courageous and selfless actions. The Russian military was forced to admit that a powerful mercenary group had captured the town and not its own troops, despite recent reports of a public dispute between the Russian military and the Wagner Group. The Kremlin has denied rumors of a conflict between the two. In a press briefing on Monday, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov stated that the alleged conflict mainly exists in the information space and is the result of information manipulations. He also emphasized that Russia recognizes both the military personnel who serve in the armed forces and show acts of heroism as well as the members of the Wagner Group. This also highlights the growing power and influence of the Wagner Group, which operates separately from the Russian army. Confidence in the Russian military has been declining after its recent battlefield defeats and the chaotic mobilization of 320,000 men in September. The capture of Soledar may allow Russian forces to outflank Ukrainian soldiers in the battle for Bakhmut, the neighboring town that has been heavily fought over since August. However, some analysts believe that its only real value is to curry favor with Russian President Vladimir Putin, who is desperate for a battlefield victory. The Kremlin's public row with Wagner threatened to undermine its first significant victory since declaring the Luhansk region of Donbass conquered in July. Since then, the Russian army has been routed from around Kharkiv in the northeast and has withdrawn from Kherson in the south. Wagner mercenaries have regularly been accused of war crimes. Earlier, Prigozhn had said that his fighters had cleansed the town of Ukrainian soldiers. He stated that the whole city is littered with the corpses of Ukrainian soldiers. There can be no talk of any humanitarian corridor. Let's start clearing the mines, he added. During the battles in Soledar and other towns, the Wagner Group sent prisoners to the front lines of the war in Ukraine to die. Ukraine's former national security advisor and current military planner said that the Wagner Group has recently recruited a large number of prisoners and is pushing them to the forefront of the fighting in the city of Bakhmut. He added that the prisoners are willing to attack constantly because they have nothing to lose. In the month of September, a video was circulated that featured a man who closely resembled Prigozhn offering contracts to prisoners to fight in the ongoing war in Ukraine. However, these contracts came with a long list of strict conditions. The man in the video, whose identity was not revealed, stated that those who choose to leave the war front in Ukraine would be deemed as deserters and will be shot. He also emphasized that recruits should always carry grenades on them in case of capture, and that in the event of their death, their bodies would be repatriated to the location they had listed on the contract. The recruitment of convicts by the Wagner Group is a brutal tactic that aims to conserve their rare assets of experienced commanders and armored vehicles at the expense of the more readily available convicts, whom the organization views as expendable. These prisoners were promised that they would be pardoned by the state after fighting for 6 months in Ukraine. The first batch of Russian prisoners who were offered amnesty in return for fighting in Ukraine has been released, Prigozhn said in a video. He told them, "You've worked through your contract." He also said that these men should be treated with the deepest respect by society. The Russian military's heavy reliance on the Wagner Group in Ukraine highlights the huge shortage of personnel they are facing. Reports estimate that Russian forces have sustained around 100,000 casualties in the ongoing conflict, which began in February, an alarming number for a war that has not yet reached its first full year. Despite the claims by the Russian Defense Ministry and the Wagner Group, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated in a late-night video address on Friday that the battle was not yet over and his forces were continuing to fight Russian troops in Soledar and other cities in eastern Ukraine. Serhiy Sherevate, spokesman for Ukraine's Eastern Military Command, also told Reuters by telephone that Soledar had not been captured. He stated that their units are there and that the town is not under Russian control. Please like and subscribe to support our channel. Thanks for watching.